like to welcome everyone to our fourth Naperville Business Network meeting of 2022. I'm very excited this morning to welcome all of you and our special guest speaker, Evie Burke. My name is Michelle Sherritt, and I am one of the founders and owners of the Naperville Business Network and our four other powerful networking groups: the Oak Brook, Northwest, Naperville, North Shore, and Windy City Business Networks. Today's talk, we ask that you keep yourself muted here on Zoom unless you have a question. And if you're on Facebook, simply type your questions in the comment box. This is being recorded, so if you need to hop off or leave, you will receive the recording later on today. If you are on Facebook, I don't have your information, so if you'd like to receive the recording, please do just DM me with your contact info. Today's speaker, as I said, is Evie Burke. Evie will be teaching us strategies that will help you stay laser focused, gain energy, and cut out distractions for the day. Welcome, Evie. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michelle. So everyone, I am so happy to be here. Let me know, or just think about if this situation ever happens to you, where you are at your desk, you have sat down, you are intending to have a great day, and suddenly you find yourself wondering, how did I end up on social media? And how long have I been doing it? And what was it that I wanted to do when I sat down? So today I'm going to share my top 3 ways to avoid that scenario, to stay focused, and to cut out distractions. But to start, I'm going to share just a little bit about myself because you might not be familiar with me. There's probably a lot of new faces here. And then we're going to talk about focus and distractions. And in there, there'll be an opportunity to schedule a conversation with me if that's something that you're interested in. So a little bit about myself. I work with entrepreneurs. I help them put the priorities and the plans behind their ideas and their goals so they can make the profit that they want in their business. And the way that I came to do this is the way a lot of us come to things: a conversation, a couple of different conversations. So the first conversation was one when I started my business in 2011. I had a different niche, and I was probably maybe a year into my business, maybe less. And I was at a networking event, and I had stayed afterwards, and there was a group of maybe like 4 or 5 of us just chatting and talking about business. And one of the ladies said, you know, I have all of the clients I can handle right now in my business, but I need to sign on one more so that I can make enough money this month to pay my bills. And I remember thinking, this sounds like a very solvable situation. This sounds like if she's full of, she can't have any more clients, she should be making more than enough to pay her bills for the month. And so I was kind of wondering, what's going on? And that I didn't do anything with it at the time, but the conversation kind of stuck in my head. And I would notice throughout the years when business owners would talk about, I am so busy and I need to get all these things done, but if I spend extra time in my business to get this stuff done, then I'm not going to be spending time with my family, or I'm not going to be doing the other things in my life that I want to be doing. And it always feels like I have to choose. And I think there has to be a way to solve this problem. So my background prior to becoming a coach and a business consultant, I worked in corporate as a computer programmer, and I did a lot of project management. I was the one that they would send off to talk with the clients and figure out what do they want the software to do, or what customizations do they want in the software, and why do they need them, and what does that look like. And then I would come back to the office and I would create the project plan, right? This is what needs to happen. This is how much time it's going to take. Here are the milestones that we need to have in there so that we're taking it back to the client and making sure that we're still on track and it's still what they want. We didn't misunderstand anything that's now getting compounded, right? And make those adjustments. And that's what I did for about 10 or so years. And I kept thinking, it sounds like people need, entrepreneurs are really great at the ideas, right? But sometimes, and business owners great at the ideas, but sometimes the implementation of that is where things fall apart. The putting the plans behind how do we make that happen? And that was something I had a lot of experience in. Now, for me, personality wise, I am an Enneagram 9. And if you don't know what the Enneagram is, that's fine. The Enneagram is a personality typing. One you might be more familiar with is the Myers-Briggs. That is also a personality typing. With the Enneagram, there's 9 different types. It's really involved. I'm not going to go into it. What you need to know for this is I am a 9. So that means I'm the peacemaker. The peacemakers are the ones that are able to see all sides of a situation. We really understand motivations and why people feel and think the way that they do. The flip side of being a peacemaker is we like things to flow easily, right? We like to keep the peace. We like it when there's peace. That's why we're the peacemaker. It also means that we don't necessarily like conflict, whether it's external or internal, which means when it came to my business, I need to make sure that I have everything as easy as possible to do, broken down, so I have very little reason to be like, oh, I don't want to do that. That seems hard, and do something else, kind of get a little whiny. And I just need to make sure that I have it so it's really easy for myself to do it. So you take that with my background of creating plans for other people and, doing it for myself. And then I had another conversation. I just started working with a new coach, and the way he started everybody out was, who do you help and what do you help them with? And at the time I was just kind of like, oh, I help everybody with everything. So you can imagine how well my business was going at that time, right? Not at all. And why I was working with this coach. And so he's like, okay, well, who do you help? I'm like, well, I help entrepreneurs. He's like, great. What do you help them with? Oh, I can do this and I can do that. And he's like, no, Evie, you're never going to make the money you want in your business with that. No one knows what to go to you for. And so I started to remember these conversations that I had and how I felt like I could help people with this. And I said, well, I can help people, with their productivity. I can help them get those plans done and figure out how they work so they're getting the things done in their business. And they don't have to feel like they have to choose between spending time with their families or, personal time, losing that, or spending time with, doing things in their business. And he says, great, that's what you do. He said, in a year, maybe you don't do that, but for the next year, that's what you're doing. And it stuck. This is what I really enjoy doing. So the things that I've learned from both my corporate life and working with clients with their plans and their priorities, and how I need to have things set up in my business so that I know what's happening. Those are all things that go into this conversation that we're going to have today, this discussion, this presentation. So my question for you to think about is, what could you get done in your business if you had laser focus and cut out distractions? Just what would you get done that you're not getting done now?
So we have a lot of comments, Evie.
Oh, great.
But kind of the general consensus is, as a business owner, we get overwhelmed with tasks, as you said. And some people do not like to delegate or hire people to do these tasks, especially as a small business owner, because they don't have the funds to hire folks.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how to let go and not be so controlling as the business owner?
We're gonna, in tip 2, we're gonna talk a little bit about to-do lists, and so I think some of that's gonna go in there. Also for letting go, if you've hired the right person, trust them to do their job, and make sure that you've set them up for success. If you've mapped out the plan and you know how you like things done, then that can make it easier to give them that plan and know if they're following it or not. If you don't have a plan and you're just take care of it, then that's a different thing. There's a coach I used to work with. She talked about letting things go versus abdicating. She says, as a business owner, you never wanted to abdicate, right? So she had a client who, like, they were talking about their accounting, and their accountant ended up not doing the things that they should have done, and they had kind of abdicated. So they didn't realize it. But she said the interesting thing was the body language, because the business owner was like, oh, well, the accountant's just taking care of it, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
they're taking care of it, I don't need to worry about it, instead of still having a relationship with the money and the accounting in their business. So, you don't want to abdicate, but you still need to be responsible. You still need to get the updates and know what's happening in your business.
Okay.
So it's just a
Um,
little
yeah.
distinction.
Some other comments too about distractions. A lot of people are saying social media is a huge distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Texting their cell phone is a huge
Mm-hmm.
distraction. And they also, some folks are saying working from home.
Mm-hmm.
Now that a lot of people are now given that option to work from home, they said it is a distraction because I'm not sure how to balance life with my work. And I know that's hard too. Just real quick, my husband and I, we worked from home the entire time that we've had our business since 2008. So we've learned how to juggle that. And
Yeah.
it's like, you want to take a break, go throw a load of laundry in. Like, learn to multitask is very huge. And being able to get those tasks done that you need for your business, but then also doing some home stuff
I'll
too to take
I'll
breaks.
adjust the verbiage a little bit, because
Uh-huh.
multitasking doesn't work. You're delegating the laundry to the washing machine.
Well, yeah,
Because
that's true.
multitasking is when you're trying to do two things that require your attention at the same time, and then nothing really gets done.
Oh, no.
The laundry is still getting done. You don't have to think
Mhm.
about, oh, is it starting the spin cycle, right? It just
That's
gets
true.
done. So um also, and I'll talk a little bit about how to plan your day
Mhm.
in a way that might help make those adjustments to, I'm at home and there's just different distractions. So we'll talk about social media and the phone when we get to a different part of the presentation. So if anybody still has additional questions when we get there, by all means,
Okay.
let us know. All right. So let's start by talking about focus. So the thing about focus is, a lot of times when you're reading like an article around productivity, it's about what to do so that you have a high level of focus just as much of the day as possible. And the thing is, you're not going to be able to have a super high level of focus for 40 hours a week. You're probably not going to be able to have a super high level of focus for 20 hours a week. And that's okay. Some days we're lucky if we have 1 hour, right? Just because of the different things happening in our lives and our businesses and at home. So what you want to do, though, is think about how strong is your T. And this is an acronym. We're going to get to what T means. But as I talk about it, what you want to remember is you have your T strength, and then you have the T strength of the tasks or the project that you're working on. Okay. So this is a concept that was introduced to me by Charlie Gilkey of Productive Flourishing. He created this. I believe in giving credit where credit is due. So just know that. So T is time. How much time do you have available? How much time does the task require? So if the task is a 60-minute task and you only have 20 minutes, you might want to choose a different task, because there's also context switching. So if you work on it for 20 minutes, you're like, okay, well, I should have 40 minutes left. No, you probably have 45 or 50 minutes left, because it's going to take you a little time to get back into it. So if you only have 20 minutes, you might want to pick a different task, right? You want to work with the time you have and the time that the task is going to require. And then we have energy. So energy is how much physical, emotional, social, and mental energy do you have for the task at hand. And there's a lot of different energies kind of in there, right? Because you might be at a spot where you have a lot of mental energy, but maybe you don't have a lot of physical energy. And that's okay. Just know when you're planning out your tasks for the day, what what matches where, right? So if you are physically exhausted at the end of the day, maybe you don't want to go and be doing your exercise, right? Or maybe you don't want to do something that's physically taxing. Instead, you might want to do something else. So you want to pay attention to your day, like when your energy ebbs and flows, where do you have higher energy? What tasks do you want to do there? And then when do you have lower energy and what tasks could you do there? So one of my clients, she is an extreme introvert. And she knows this about herself, but she's a business owner, so she knows she needs to network to grow her business. And she knows when she comes home from networking, she is going to be emotionally, socially, mentally exhausted. So she knows she needs to have anywhere from a half hour to an hour of just, I am going to sit and watch Netflix or read a book or do something like that so that she can, replenish that energy, so she can give herself that time off. She knows that about herself, so she makes sure that she schedules that in the day. If she can, she'll do her networking later in the day, so she doesn't have to worry about going back to work, and she can just go into, her personal life and doing other things there. Another example is I had a coach where he also an introvert, so he got a lot of energy from one-on-one conversations. They just lit him up. And he would schedule a client session every morning at 9 a.m. because it would do two things for him. One, it would make sure he was in his office no later than 8:50 in the morning to prepare for that 9 o'clock appointment with his client. And two, it energized him for the rest of the morning. It just set him up to have a really great day. So he knew that he had better days when he had his day start with having a private client. And then the A stands for attention. How engaged or distracted are you? So if you know the mailman comes at like 1 p.m. and the dog's going to go crazy, you probably don't want to be scheduling a important phone call, or sometimes you have to anyway, right? But or you don't want to be working on something that really requires a lot of focus because, well, the dog's going to disturb you. Or if the kids are getting home at, I don't have kids, so I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock, and you're going to be listening for them to come in the door, you probably don't want to be doing something that requires a high level of attention, because you're going to get distracted as you're listening for the kids coming home or not coming home. And then you're like, okay, what's going on, right? So pay attention to how engaged or distracted are you throughout the day? What are the things when are the times where you can have a more engaged time to work on things? One really easy step to increase your attention is get enough sleep. And I say easy with a caveat, because if you are a parent of a small child, sleep is something that is probably I wish I could get it versus it's easy to get an extra hour of sleep, right? So if you can get enough sleep, if you can make sure you're getting some more sleep, that can really help with the attention. I know that if I am feeling like I'm having a really difficult time paying attention or staying focused on something, I'll take a step back and I'll start thinking about how much sleep have I been getting. And about 8 times out of 10, that's what my problem is. In February of 2014, the American Psychological Association published an article that said failing to get enough sleep dramatically impairs memory and concentration. So if you want to improve your memory and concentration, you might want to look at how much sleep you're getting. So these 3 things, time, energy, and attention, determine how much focus you have for the things that you're doing. So if you laid out your day with your T strength in mind, what would that look like? What activities would you shift from the afternoon to the morning, or from the morning to the afternoon? How would your day be different? Take another drink of water. All right. So our next tip, so tip number 1 was focus, know your T strength. And the second tip here is have a to-do list. So why have a to-do list? David Allen, who wrote the great book, Getting Things Done, says your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. And I completely agree with this, because your mind can only hold so many things at once. David Rock wrote a book called Your Brain at Work, and it's about how your brain works. And he describes your brain as being, or your mind as being a stage, and there can only be so many active players on the stage at any one time. And then everything else is in the wings or in the audience, right? But they're not the things getting the attention. So what happens is we can only have, I think he says, like 4 to 7 things on our mind at any one time. And if it's one project that we're working on with lots of details, it's just that project. And then everything else kind of fades away. But if you have things written down, then you don't have to worry about trying to remember all the things you need to get done. And your brain isn't constantly saying, oh, don't forget about this, don't forget about that, because it knows they're written down, they're taken care of. Now, some people I will hear say, oh, but to-do lists don't work for me. And there have been articles about this, and they talk about they're just this big, huge, long list, and it's just overwhelming and it's frustrating. And they say, they don't work. Well, yes, that kind of a to-do list doesn't work. The one that has that big, long list that never, ever ends, that, as you're looking at it every day, yes, that's overwhelming. It's not well ordered and prioritized. It's not going to work from on a daily basis. Instead, you need 3 lists. So the first list you need is that everything list. This is the list that has everything on it that you need to get done over the next week, month, maybe almost into a quarter, with some notes about what needs to happen so you meet your goals for the year. It has everything on it, right? This is your repository for making sure you don't forget something. But you only look at this list once, maybe twice a week. Then you have your this week list. From your everything list, what needs to get done this week so that you are on track to meet your goals this month, this quarter, and this year. There's also going to be the things on it that popped up last week that didn't get done. Those are going to be moved on to here. That's fine, but you have your this week list. Again, though, you're not looking at your this week list multiple times a day, because again, that might get a little overwhelming. If on Monday you're looking at this long list of things that need to get done, I freak out. Or the flip thing that happens for me is like, oh, I have the rest of the week to get this done. And I end up doing something that doesn't need to get done because it's fun, or I distract myself. So what you need to do is have a today list. You create the today list from the this week list that has the things on it that you want to get done today. Anything that's due later today that's not done, anything that's due tomorrow that's not done, those are probably higher priorities. But you're picking those priorities from what needs to happen this week, versus you're also looking at things that need to happen in 2 months' time, and you start to freak out about it because you know it's going to take a lot of time, but it's 2 months away. And instead, really what you need to do is call that person back, right? So have your today list. Now, the mistake most people make when they are creating their today list is they create what I call the magical unicorn to-do list. And this is the to-do list where you're assuming that everything is going to go right today, and everything is going to take exactly how much time you think it's going to take or less. And nothing's going to distract you, and you're only going to need a couple of short bathroom breaks, and none of your meetings are going to go long. And the fact of the matter is, those days don't actually exist. So what happens is you get frustrated and say, oh, to-do lists don't work for me because I created it and everything took longer and nothing worked out, and I just felt more frustrated at the end of the day. So those unicorn to-do lists are really just a way for you to prove yourself right and drive yourself crazy at the same time. So then you don't have a to-do list. So then this happens where you sit down at your desk, you don't have a to-do list. So you're going through that everything list in your brain. You're like, okay, what is it I need to focus on today? What is it that needs to get done? What's the highest priority? And you're like, oh, this is the thing that is the squeaky wheel, and you start working on it. And then you get maybe 10 minutes or so into it, and you're like, oh, shoot, I need to get XYZ out to Pam, and she's looking for this. So you jump and you start working on that, right? And you get that done. And then you're like, okay, now I can go back to what I was working on before, but what was I working on before? I don't know. So then you go through that everything list again in your brain. You freak out about some project that doesn't need to be done for another month. And you pick something out and you start working on it. And then you're like, oh, I was working on this other thing. And you go back and you finish that. And then you finish it. And then the whole cycle starts over again. And it's exhausting because you've had to go through that everything list, what, two, three times? You've had to remake all of these decisions. You know you're forgetting something, but you don't know what it is. And you're just overwhelmed. But if you have a to-do list that's based in reality, if your today list is something that you know this needs to get done and you know it's based on this is what needs to happen this week, it ties in with what needs to happen this week. So I'm on track for my goals this month, this quarter, and this year. It feels a lot easier, and you're creating it where you're thinking about, okay, what can I reasonably expect to accomplish today? Taking your T strength into account. Also thinking about what normal distractions do you have throughout the day, right? What times of the day are you just not going to be able to have as high a focus? And taking into account the normal breaks that you need throughout the day. Don't forget lunch. Sometimes I know we get busy and we forget lunch. So don't forget that your body needs that fuel. And you want to take into account the appointments that you have and give yourself a little wiggle room so that if something unexpected pops up, it's okay, right? Oops, going the wrong way. This is what happens when I try to use my keyboard. All right, so having a to-do list that works for you means you don't have to remember what needs to be done. You have it written down, you know it's there. And then when you finish one task, you don't have to mentally go through all of those other things, right? You know what needs to happen next. It's written down. If you do get sidetracked because somebody calls or there's an email you need to respond to, you have that list written down. You know what you need to go back to. And it makes it really easy to move from one item to the next because, again, you don't have to think about, oh, what is it that I was working on? And a quick secret about to-do lists. They are really goal and project management. They are your system to keep your business running smoothly. So I have this quote here from James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits, where he says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if you're not reaching the goals, look at what are your systems? What systems do you have in place? How are you keeping track of the things that you need to be doing in your business and making sure that they're happening when they need to happen? So if you created a daily to-do list that you could get done and saved you time and energy, what would you do with that time and energy? How much more would you get done? Now, I know somebody had asked a question earlier about delegating. If you have your everything mapped out in those lists, it makes it a lot easier to look at and notice, oh, I do this every week. I don't like it. And it takes more time than I think I need to be spending on it. But then you know what are the things that you could potentially hire somebody for because you have those steps mapped out. You know what needs to happen, and it's really easy to cut and paste those and hand those off to somebody else, whether it's assistant or if you don't have an assistant, then knowing what you're hiring for. Because I know sometimes I've talked with business owner friends where they said, well, I hired an assistant and then we spent a month trying to figure out what they were going to work on. And it's like, that sounds like not a great time of time and energy for either of you. So, make sure you know what you want them to work on before you hire them. So you're hiring right and they can hit the ground running. Are there any other questions, Michelle, that anybody has?
I they said the lists are interesting. If I have a task that is a month out, I try to break it up
Mm-hmm.
with a few steps each day up until a deadline. Then I do not procrastinate or get overwhelmed.
That's a
Um,
good system.
that was a comment. I actually, as you were talking, every day I have, and I don't know if you could see this. Can you see this?
A little bit.
Um, so it's like every day. you just write down the things that you have to get done for the day.
Hmm.
And so as I think of things, I write it down.
Yep.
And then as I do them, I check them off. But I don't make a long list each day. I try to make it short so that it's achievable.
Yes.
And then if I have extra time, then I'll add some things to it. And then once I get
That's
that done,
great.
I check it off. So it makes me feel like, oh, I got a lot done today, which I did.
Yes.
Um, so that kind of helps me out a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. I know we'll talk about focus and distraction in just a second. For daily to-do lists, I I firmly love having it on paper, whether it's in a planner or in a small notebook or whatever it is that works, because for most people, including myself, if it is on a app on my phone or on the computer, I'm going to pick up my phone and instantly it's like walking through a doorway and you forget what you were doing. I pick up my phone and I'm like, oh, let me check Facebook. I go to my computer. Oh, let me check my email. Where if it's on a piece of paper, in front of me, I don't have that distraction, that instant like walking through a doorway context switching.
Yeah.
So, yes. All right. So, let's go on. So, the next thing here, so thinking about your daily to-do list, what can you get done? How much time would it save you? And what would you do with that time and energy? And I would love to say I will solve all of your problems with attention and distraction in a quick conversation, presentation, but unfortunately, that's not the way life works. So if you want to have a conversation with me about anything, go ahead and grab a time on my calendar. It's a half hour, just chat with Evie, ask your questions. I'll answer as much as I can in that half hour. And if you're not sure what you would ask, go ahead and set up the time now anyway, because what will happen is later today, you're going to think, oh, here's the question. This is what I want to know. And you're going to have to find that link and you're going to get sidetracked. So just grab the time now and then it's there for you when you want it. All right. So let's go on to the third tip. So first tip, focus, so know the strength of your tea. Second tip, have your to-do lists, do them in a way that works for you. Third tip, know yourself. So there's two questions here you want to ask yourself. What are your go-tos for distraction and what supports you in staying focused? So we're going to talk about the first one. What are your go-tos for distraction? And everyone kind of anticipated this, right? They were talking about, I get so distracted with social media, with the dings on my phone, right? Those are all things that, yes, they distract us. The cool thing is when you know what distracts you, then you can notice it sooner, right? So if I know that, because this happens, that I get sidetracked with Facebook or social media, because I know that about myself, when I find myself there and I'm like, wait a minute, how long have I been here? I know if I'm asking that question, it's probably I've been here too long and I need to shift and do something else. So when you're thinking about distractions, there's two different types of distractions though to think about. The first is the things that you are distracted by. So the things that are outside of you, the dings on your phone, right? The dog barking, the kids coming in and asking a question. Those are things from outside of you that distract you. So you want to know what those are so that you can, create strategies for how to deal with them, right? So maybe you make sure the dog doesn't have access to the window to look outside, so he's not barking at all the other people walking around with their dogs. I was dog sitting my parents' dog for a couple of weeks, and that was happening a lot. So I was like, okay, you get to stay in my office with me, so you're not barking anymore. So, just if you know what they are, then you can start to create strategies to address them or to minimize them a little bit. For the distractions where these are the ways you distract yourself, again, having that knowledge of what those distractions are for you can really be helpful. So whether it's social media, one I found myself doing this was a few years ago now. I am not somebody who naturally just is like, let me clean. That's a way that I will relieve stress. That's not how I'm built. And it was like a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, and I was in the guest bathroom, like scrubbing the tub. And I was probably about 10 minutes in when I sat back, and I'm sitting on the floor in the bathroom, and I was like, why am I cleaning the shower? I don't like cleaning the shower. And this shower wasn't really that dirty. No one uses it. Like, what's going on? And I realized I was avoiding something in my business. Like, I was hard avoiding this thing in my business. But once I realized that that's what was happening, you can bet that didn't happen again. Like, as soon as I was in the bathroom thinking, oh, that needs to be cleaned, I would think, okay, but this is my business time, so I can do that later. And right now I'm going to walk back into my office and focus on the things that I need to be focusing on during my business time. So know what distracts you. Another thing to look out for is something I call productive procrastination. So there's unproductive procrastination, which is what we normally think about when we think about procrastination, which is the social media or, anything like that we probably really don't need to be doing. But then there's productive procrastination. And what that is you have this task or this project that you need to get done, but it feels difficult, right? So instead, you have all of these other little things on your to-do list that you decide, I'm going to get these done first. And you get all of these things done, and then you're like, oh, well, I ran out of time to do this really important task. But look at all the stuff I got done. I was so productive today. And yeah, you were productive. You got a lot of things done, but you didn't get the really important thing done, the maybe thing that really will move the needle on your business or help in that direction, right? And I had a client where we were talking about this, and she was talking about all the stuff that she got done, but there was that one big thing that didn't get done. And I introduced her to the concept of productive procrastination. And she's like, oh, that's really interesting. So a couple of weeks later, we have our next call, and she's like, oh my God, Evie, you will not believe how much I got done. She said, now that I know that I productively procrastinate, I saw how much I did it. I got so many of the bigger things done in the last 2 weeks than I had gotten done in the last 2 months, because I saw what was happening and I was able to shift what I was doing and work on that thing that felt so hard and get it done. And then I didn't have to worry about it anymore. And I made so much progress. And it was all because she knew what she was looking for, right? She recognized that, oh, this is something that I do. So then she could make those adjustments when she noticed it. And don't beat yourself up if it takes you a little bit at first to make those adjustments. It takes time, but you'll start noticing it sooner and sooner. So again, these are just some examples. Know what your go-tos are for distractions so you can make those adjustments. Now, what supports you in staying focused? These are the things like the person, my client and friend, who knows that after a networking event, she needs to take some time off and just, read a book, watch some TV, have some downtime, right? So that supports her in staying focused and getting things done in her business, is having that downtime when she needs it. I also talked about my former coach, where he would schedule a client in the morning. That supported him in staying focused. So what are those things for you? Another thing sometimes that we don't like to think about, but is really helpful, is having a cleaned up space, a decluttered space. Because what happens if you walk into your office and you're like, oh, it's so messy. Or even if you don't have like that thought, just the walking in and going, oh, like that's an instant energy hit on yourself as soon as you walk in, versus if the space is decluttered, if it's cleaned up, and you walk in and you don't have that energy hit, or you have the, oh, look how nice my space looks, right? You have that instant, maybe a little bit of an upper, the dopamine hit, then that can be really helpful. Another thing for staying focused is having some accountability, whether it's an accountability buddy, a business bestie, a coach that you're working with, a mastermind group that you're part of, any combination thereof, whatever it is that helps you stay focused and know so-and-so is going to ask me about this, and just give you that little extra push to stay focused and get something done. And then the one other way sometimes that can really help people stay focused is Pomodoros. And that's the technique where you work for a period of time and then you take a break. So sometimes people say 25 minutes with a 5-minute break, or 50 minutes with a 10-minute break, whatever works for you. And then you do that for 2 or 3 hours, and then you take maybe a half-hour break. Now, the trick to making Pomodoros work for you, though, is whatever that work period is, you write down, okay, in the next 25 minutes, in the next 50 minutes, this is what I'm going to get done. You write it down, put it on a Post-it note, whatever works for you. And then that's what you do. You don't check social media. You don't play a game on your phone. You don't check your text messages. Unless those are the things that you're doing that are on that list, you focus on, these are the things that I'm going to get done. And then at the end of the time, then you can check your email. You can take that break. You can, do whatever. That's the trick to making Pomodoros work. Okay. So what if you quickly recognized when you were distracted and you knew what supported your focus? Imagine you spent even 10% less time, even 5% less time on your distractions. How much more would you get done? How much frustration would you save yourself? How much more sleep would you get? You're not worrying at night about those things that didn't get done. All right. So the 3 ways to overcome distraction and gain laser focus are: have that focus, recognize the T strength, the to-do list, have those 3 to-do lists, the everything your this week and today, and know yourself, know what your distractions are, and know what supports your focus. So now I want you to do a quick visualization. So just take a couple of deep breaths in, close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, and picture a normal day for you. What's going on? How are you feeling? I'm just going to walk through that day a little bit. Okay, now take a couple more deep breaths, kind of let that go. If it was stressful for you, just imagine taking that stress and maybe throwing it out a window or something and just letting it go. Now picture a day where you know what needs to be done and you know it will get done. What's shifted? How does it feel different? If you want to take some notes on that, when you're ready, kind of come back to the room. I don't want to downtime in an online presentation can feel really weird, both to the presenter and to those of you, doing it at home. So if you want to come back to that later, you can always come back to that later. But make some notes. Notice what shifted, what feels different. And now we have some time for Q&A. So again, if you want to get a hold of me, you can set up that chat. I'm pointing over to my other screen, which I realize doesn't translate here, but there's my email address there if you'd rather email me. And I'd love to know what questions everybody has.
So, Evie, this was great. I just closed my eyes and did that, and it was like a big weight off my shoulders, I felt. If I was able to just get rid of those distractions and figure out how to make my day go a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
um, some people said some distractions for me is my email. So I've decided to check my email in the morning and then before the end of the day. That seems to help me. Other people said social media is huge for me. So I've decided to just go on once a day. Other people said social media as well. They said they get caught up in politics, friends' comments.
Yes, I make that noise because I do the same thing. Like my husband at some points has told me, why do you bother checking it? You walk away so frustrated.
Yeah.
So I have like muted some of my Facebook friends that I have noticed particularly will post things that aggravate me. Whether I agree with them or not, if it's aggravating me, I will just mute them, whether it's what is it, a 30-day mute?
Yeah.
Or just muting them so they don't pop up in my feed anymore. There are some free apps that you can get that you can set up so that you can say, I have 30 minutes a day or 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the afternoon to check social media or set those limits, and then it'll block them for you. For some people that works really well. For other people, it's just really annoying. So, again, know who you are. And if you want to try it out and you find it really annoying, then you uninstall it. But sometimes just having that timer where if you know you are going to sit down with Facebook, because maybe you do have a business thing that you need to post or you need to check a business page, maybe set a timer. How long do I think this is going to take me? And then when you are finished with it and all of a sudden you find yourself scrolling and the timer goes off, you're like, oh yeah, need to do something else.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good tip. Someone else said email is a huge distraction for me. It'll set my entire mood for the day if I get a bad email when I first get into the office, which is true. I think we've all experienced that.
Yeah.
Um,
There, one thing you might want to try there is if there's like a quick win that you can have in the morning before you check your email. So if there's just like a quick task or a quick something, maybe a 15 or 20-minute thing you can do that you're like, okay, I've gotten something checked off my to-do list, and then you check your email. So it kind of gives you that positive momentum. Try it out. Maybe that'll help the sting of those emails a little bit.
okay. Someone else said the Apple Watch helps me.
Mhm.
It says that you need to stand up, and that's when I take a break.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, having those little reminders, right? Yep.
And someone else said, what is the name of the personality test again that you took? I've never heard of that one.
It's Enneagram. It's oh, how do you spell it? E ENNEAGRAM.
Okay.
So there's 9 different types. Every type has its pro and cons. Uh, there's a lot of information. It's been around for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best books, it's a little older now, but one of the best books is let's see, The Wisdom of the Enneagram
Okay.
by Rizzo and Hudson. They're like the go-to. One of them has since passed, but they have a training institute and they're kind of like the go-tos for Enneagram. There's a lot of other people that have a lot of good information out there too.
Okay. And then just a lot of comments saying that this was really helpful
Good.
to them, and they're going to reach out to you. So you do have your contact info up. If you do want to set up that talk with Evie, like she said, and you're not sure what you're going to ask or whatever, just set up that time block because I know she fills up quickly. Um, and yeah, I think that's good. So I want to thank you, Evie, for your talk today. Thank you so much.
Very
I
welcome.
know I took away a lot from it as well.
Good.
Um, as a reminder to everyone, our next in person event is going to be April 12th. Evie will be there. It's going to be at Noon Whistle Brewery. So if you'd like to meet her, she'll be there. It starts at 5:30. Tickets are $20 for non-members and free, of course, for our members. With your ticket, you get 2 drink tickets, pizza, and 2 hours of networking with local business owners. Um, to learn more about our groups, membership, upcoming events, and past events, you can visit our website at naperbiz.net. Do we have a comment on here on Zoom? Let me see. Oh, Jennifer's just saying thank you. Okay. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. Remember, this was recorded. So if you signed up and registered, you'll receive the recording. If you're on Facebook Live, the recording will be on this Facebook page as well. So you could come back to it, I think in like an hour, and it's up. But if you'd like to receive any future events or any other communication from us, you can give me your email address and we can put you on our list. Thank you again, Evie. This was great.
You are welcome.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you for attending. Thanks, Evie.
Thank you.